Hey guys, today's lesson is volume of prisms and cylinders. So the formula that I show you today is found on your reference sheet, so you can use that whenever you need it. Vocab word at the top, a prism is a solid three-dimensional object with two identical parallel bases and flat sides. Prisms are named by their base shape. So basically, if you want to find the volume of any prism, this formula is the volume is equal to BH. Something very important is this is a capital B, and it's a capital B on the reference sheet. That capital B stands for the base area, and H stands for the prism height. The height of any prism is how far it is, or it's the line that connects the two bases together. Okay, so capital B, why that's important, you'll see down here in a second. So here are some prisms, and remember they're named by their base shape. So when you look at this, the base is what it sits on, it's the bottom. According to this picture, this is the base right here on the bottom, and you notice it's a 5 by 5, which is a square. So we call this a square prism. When you look at this one, I shouldn't say actually the base is what it sits on, because it doesn't necessarily need to sit on the base, but the bases have to be parallel to each other. So when you look at this one, it's shaded in. The bases are triangles. They're parallel to each other. So this is what we call a triangular prism. And then finally over here, the base is this bottom part and this top part. They're parallel. It's a 3 by 4. So this is a rectangular prism. So now, all of these shapes have the same volume formula. The volume formula for each one is capital BH. So again, where that capital B comes in, capital B says we gotta find the area of the base. So right now this base is a square. So to find the area of a square, I would do 5 times 5 and I would get 25. So basically this capital B gets replaced with 25. And then the height of the prism up and down here is 5. So noticing that this is all 5, 5, 5, and 5, we can actually call this one a cube because everything's the same. The last thing we have to do then is just type in 25 times 5 and we get 125. If you are going to label, your label gets a cubed because it is volume. Okay, so a triangular prism, the volume is BH. The base is the area of the triangle, while a triangle area is 1/2 base times height. So it would be 1/2 of 5 times 8. So in this case, it would be equal to 20. So the volume is 20 times the height is 10. Now, again, the height is the line that connects the two bases together. So that's the height, okay? And then lastly, this rectangular prism. The area of the base of the rectangle is 3 by 4, so it gives you 12. So it is 12 times, and then the height right here is 12. So this is 144. I never finished this one though. This one's 200 and 144. So here's the thing. This is what it's going to say on your reference sheet, but you can remember these two things. This is what a lot of people remember. If it is a square or a rectangular base, you learned volume as length times width times height. You can go ahead and still do that. That is what's happening. The capital B is the length times width. If you have a triangle, it would be 1/2 length times width times height. So this is for triangles, this is for squares and rectangles. Okay? All right, so a few practice problems, just finding the area of these things. So if you look, the volume is capital BH, or length times width times height. So the first one would be 2 times 5 times 6, and we would get 60 centimeters cubed. If you're dealing with a triangle, 1/2 length times width times height. And it really doesn't matter what order you put those three numbers in because we're just multiplying them all together. And then finally, these two lines here mean this is both 5. Volume equals length times width times height. So you can always use length times width times height and 1/2 length times width times height for those shapes. Okay? Okay, one more with prisms is right here on the top, number 4. The cube and the rectangular prism below have the same volume. Find the height of the rectangular prism to the nearest tenth. Okay, so a cube has all sides the same. So everything on this is going to be 8, 8, 8. So if we want to find the volume of that cube, we're going to do 8 times 8 times 8, length times width times height. And we're going to get 512. Now, it did say right in the problem that these both have a volume of 512. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my rectangular prism formula. I'm going to fill in the 512 that I already know. The base is 14 times 6, and I don't know the height. So 14 times 6 in your calculator is 84, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 84 to get a height of 6.1 for my nearest tenth height. All right, the next part of this this packet is cylinders. So prisms have flat faces. A cylinder is round. It's circular all the way around. So a cylinder is a 3D object that has circles as its bases. The volume formula for a cylinder is pi r squared h. R is the radius, which is halfway from the center. It's from the center over, so it's halfway of the circle. And h is the height. And again, in this case, the height is the line that connects the two bases, which in this case is the two circles. Okay? Now, you might, in some problems, it might be referred to as a right circular cylinder. So basically, if you see right circular cylinder, all that means, okay, the word right here is referring to perpendicular. It means the heights are perpendicular to the bases in all spots. So just, I'm going to slide up for a minute. So when you look at this one down here, this is not a right circular cylinder because it's slanted. It doesn't have a right angle right here. Okay, so if you see that, that just means that it has a right angle on all of these corners here. Right angle, right angle, right angle. Okay, so here's how you find the volume of a cylinder. All three of these are going to be to the nearest tenth. So remember, the formula is pi r squared h. So we're simply just plugging in pi 4 squared 7. We type this all in, and remember, we use the pi symbol. We don't use 3.14. So to the nearest tenth, it's 351.9 centimeters cubed. Next one, I'm not going to write the formula this time. Pi r squared h. Notice the height is down here. Doesn't look like a height of what we're used to, but the height connects the two bases together, so it will be 8. So this is 226.2 centimeters cubed. Now this one's a little bit trickier because the radius isn't directly given to us. We have to do a little bit of work to find the radius. We do see the height is 3, so I'm going to leave that blank and I'll put a 3 in here. So circumference from another video lesson is pi d. If we know the circumference is 6 pi, and we simply cross out the pi's, this circle has a diameter of 6, which means it has a radius of 3 because the radius is half the diameter. So I'm going to fill in here a 3 squared and get a volume of 84.8 centimeters cubed. All right, and lastly, these two bottom ones. These are in terms of pi. We saw this in the area perimeter video. In terms of pi just means we don't put pi in our calculator. So we're going to do this the same thing. Volume equals pi. Notice in this, the r is going to be 5. It's half of that diameter. And the height is 23. So when I type this in my calculator, I only put 5 squared times 23. It gives me 575. And then I attach the pi onto it and put my label. So that's the answer, 575 pi centimeters cubed. Same thing over here. Even though it's slanted, it does not matter. It's still going to be pi r squared h. It does not matter. The cylinder is still going to be the same formula, even if it is not a right circular cylinder. I'm only going to type in 5 squared times 9 to get 225. I'm going to attach the pi and put centimeters cubed. Okay, so with that, I'm going to show you just a couple word problems using these two concepts. So the first one, a cylinder has a volume of 1,402.4 centimeters cubed, and it says if the radius of the base is 6 centimeters, find the height to the nearest tenth. Okay, So I see the word cylinder. I go to my reference sheet. I pull out the formula for cylinder, which is pi r squared h. I fill in everything that I know. This is the volume, 1,402.4. The radius is 6, so I fill in a 6. I don't know the height. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so here's what you're going to want to do. We're going to put this together. So in my calculator, I'm going to type pi times 6 squared, and it's going to give me 113.1, and it's going to be a decimal after that. I'm going to divide both sides by the unrounded answer, which we did many times in trig, right? So I'm going to do 1,402.4 divided by, I'm going to go grab that entire unrounded answer, and then I will round this final answer to give me 12.4 for my height. Okay, second problem, the circumference of the base of a cylinder is 20.1 inches. If the volume of the cylinder is 305.6 inches cubed, find the radius to the nearest tenth. So again, keyword is cylinder, so I just go ahead and write out the formula for cylinder. The volume is 305.6. The radius we're going to have to do some work for again because they're referencing the circumference. This is the circumference formula. They're telling us the circumference is 20.1. So if I divide both sides by pi, I'm going to get a diameter of about 6.4. Again, it's a long number. And I divide that by 2 to get a radius of 3.2 ... because it's going to go on for a little while. So I come over here, I put in that 3.2 squared, and then I put in actually, I just realized that this should say find the height, not the radius. Okay, sorry. I just realized the question, we're looking for height, not the radius. Okay, so this should be a height. Sorry. Find the height. Okay, there we go. So that's the question. Okay, so sorry about that. So I'm going to quickly do this work here. So I'm going to do pi times 3.2 squared, and I'm going to get this 32.16 and so on. So I'm going to write 305.6 equals 32.2h, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 32.2. Okay, so my height is going to be 3.1 inches. Okay, we good with that? Okay, scrolling up to number 3. A solid wooden prism has a rectangular base with sides 5, 7, and a height of 5. A hole in the shape of a cylinder with a radius of 1 is drilled through the entire length of the prism. Find the volume of the remaining in the prism after we drill that out. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to find the volume of the whole prism. 5 times 5 times 7, length times width times height. We're going to get 175 inches cubed. Then we're going to find the volume of that cylinder that is being drilled out. The dimensions of that cylinder are radius of 1. The height is 7 because the circle base would be here, the other one would be on this side, and that connector piece would be 7. So that is going to be about 21.99. So I have the entire prism taking out, minusing the hole that we're going to drill out, and we're going to get to the nearest cubic inch, 153 inches cubed. Okay, and number 4, a barrel of fuel oil is a right circular cylinder where the inside measurements have a diameter of 22.5. So above that, I'm going to put R equals 11.25 because we'll need half of it. And a height of 33.5 inches. There are 231 cubic inches in a liquid gallon. So you know what? This is giving us, so 231 inches cubed equals 1 gallon. This is giving us a conversion, this one. Determine and state to the nearest tenth the gallons of fuel that are in a barrel of fuel oil. Okay, so it is a cylinder. It says right off the bat it's a cylinder. So we're going to fill in the radius of 11.25 and the height of 33.5. So what I'm going to get here for this is 13,319.86 ... and that's going to be in inches cubed. The question wants us to answer it in gallons. So I'm going to put this over 1, and remember when we did conversions, we put the same unit on the bottom, so this will be 231 inches cubed, and 1 gallon on the top. So basically the inches cubed will cross out, and it's going to be 13,319 divided by 231, and we'll get 57.7 gallons. All right, last page here is 2 more just quick word problems. So Ian needs to replace 2 concrete sections in his sidewalk as modeled below. Each section is 36 inches by 36 inches by 4 inches deep. He can mix his own concrete at $3.25 per cubic foot. So here's a red flag: inches, inches, oh, feet. How much money will it cost him to replace the 2 sections? So easiest thing to do is convert right off the bat for this problem. I'm going to say 36 inches, right? I'm going to divide that by 12. That's 3 feet. So this is really 3 feet. This is really 3 feet. 4 inches divided by 12 is 1/3 of a foot. It's 0.33333, so it's 1/3 of a foot. So I'm going to change this to a 1/3. Then I'm going to do the volume. Volume is length times width times height. That's going to give me 3, but there's 2 sections, right? So basically the entire volume is going to be 6 of that whole thing. This is how much it costs per cubic foot, $3.25. So I'm going to do 6 times $3.25 to get $19.50. Now, if you were to go about this problem, I'll do a side note over here, and you didn't convert at first. Let's say you did this, 36 times 36 times 4, and then you multiply that by 2, because there's 2 of them. You would get 10,368 inches cubed. If you want to convert this to feet, you would have to divide it by 12 cubed, because you're in inches cubed, and that would still get you 6. And then you'd multiply by the 325. Okay? So you could do it either way. All right, and our last one is right here. A fabricator is hired to make a 27-foot long metal railing for his stairs at a local library. The railing is modeled by the diagram below. The railing itself is 2.5 inches high by 2.5 inches wide, and then it's 27 feet long. So what we're gonna do is, right off the bat, I see foot, I see inches, inches. My answer is supposed to be in inches. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change this 27 feet to 324 inches. I did that by doing 27 times 12. So now everything's in the same unit. So it tells us this is a rectangular prism, and this is a half cylinder. So I'm gonna write 2 formulas. I'm gonna write pi r squared h divided by 2, because it's a half cylinder, and I'm gonna write length times width times height, because it's a rectangular prism. So the half cylinder, if you take a look, the radius is going to be half of this. It's going to be half of 2.5. So it's going to be 1.25 squared. And the height of the cylinder, remember, is the line that connects the bases. Well, here's one half circle, here's the other one. So that line that connects it is that 324. So the height is 324. So that top part is about 785.2 ... Then I'm going to do the rectangular prism. Length 2.5, width 324, or height, you could use that as height, and then that 1.25, because it's going to be this little section right here, 1.25. So the volume is 1,012.5, and then of course we want a total, so we add them together and we round appropriately, and we get 1,808 inches cubed. That is all, guys. Thank you.